So today we're going to go ahead and touch on a topic that's kind of near and dear to my heart. I was a huge wrestling fan growing up as a kid, and to have Hulk Hogan gone now, I just felt like I wanted to do something. So I'm going to do something a little different than I usually do. I shut down all the other studio crap that I got and just kind of with my little cam here because I want this to be a little bit of a personal moment because you know what? Hulk Hogan meant a lot to me in my childhood. Got me through a lot of tough times. You know, eat vitamins and you say your prayers. And Hulk Hogan was for the most part, I think a decent man. Yeah, he's made mistakes, but I think we all have. And we're up to journey through. I want to go through 4 decades of like flexing the grease and the bandanas that probably smelled like a combination of baby oil and maybe a little Gold Bond. And the promos that made less sense than your drunk uncle explaining cryptocurrency at Thanksgiving. Some of them were good. He was an era, a living action figure, a man who told millions of kids to eat their vitamins and say their prayers. It's the thing, right? And while backstage probably eating Slim Jims the size of baseball bats and power slamming a 6-pack of Miller Lite. And, you know, I was eating much Slim Jims, though, because him and Macho were not very good, are they? So let's lighten up our spandex, brother, because we're going through the 10 most iconic Hulk Hogan matches of all time. And yes, we're going to do it the full TED Talk style, because if you think Hulkamania can't be academic, you're wrong. And, let's honor him in his name. Number 10, Hulk Hogan versus Shawn Michaels at SummerSlam 2005. The match where Shawn became a cartoon character. Let's start with the chaos of SummerSlam 2005. Hulk Hogan versus Shawn Michaels. On paper, this sounded like a dream match. The immortal icon versus the showstopper. But in reality, it was less Clash of the Legends and more like a Looney Tunes Goes Wrestling. See, Shawn Michaels decided he wasn't going to just wrestle Hogan. He was going to oversell every single move like he'd been shot out of a cannon. And if you know Shawn, he sells pretty hard. I've seen some pretty good videos of him wrestling Austin, and he would sell over the top to the point where he would stand on his head after a stunner. So Shawn likes to oversell. I get it. And Shawn Michaels bounces around the ring like a bouncy ball in a dryer, and Shawn flies out of the ring like he's been launched into orbit by NASA. You know, and that's everybody was always worried about when they were wrestling Hogan. I've watched a lot of the documentaries here lately. Is they always didn't want to hurt the golden goose. They call him the golden goose. I guess you would have gotten in a lot of trouble by Vince McMahon. He was a big moneymaker. But here's the thing, it was hilarious. And Hogan, he doesn't do jobs unless it's The Rock, unless you're a DVD royalty check. But Shawn made the match legendary by turning it into a comedy special the way he flipped around. Life lesson here, though, is even when you're outmatched, you can still make it memorable because especially if you act like you just got electrocuted every time someone slaps you like Shawn did. Number 9 was a classic, Hulk Hogan versus Vince McMahon at WrestleMania 19. The old men fighting with chairs. That's what this match was. You know, WrestleMania 19, think about this one. One guy is 49 years old and the other guy is 57. This wasn't exactly a 5-star athletic contest. And it was basically 2 dads fighting it out. And who gets the last steak at Golden Corral? That's the way it appeared. Fully spandex, it was entertaining, and Vince McMahon pulled out of a steel pipe like he was about to fix the plumbing. Lord knows he doesn't even know how to probably even mow his yard. And he climbed a ladder and elbow dropped Hogan, middle-aged man who still thinks he can. He even up until his 60s. I mean, he was going strong. And Hogan, well, you know, Hogan did Hogan things like boot and the leg drop and cupping his ear to the crowd like he was trying to hear if his laundry was done. And the highlights, the bloody, strange, wide-eyed Vince McMahon popping up from the apron like a horror movie villain. That image alone is worth the price of admission. Hogan won, and obviously because, again, it's Hogan. But the match worked because it was basically a live edition of Jackass, the AARP version. Number 8, Ash at the Beach in 94. Finally, the match everyone wanted in 91. Ah, yes, Hogan and Flair, the match wrestling dreamed about for years, and WCW finally gave it to us in 1994. And sure, it was 3 years later than it should have been, and Hogan looked like, your drunk uncle who still brags about school football, but it was still history, so we're going to cover it. The crowd was electric that day. The entrances felt like royalty had arrived. You know how Flair does it, isn't it? Extravagant jumpsuit that he does. What the frick is wrong with this mic? Get away from me. Yeah, we're going unscripted today. It's for get over it. Hogan came out like golden child of America, while Flair, he shuddered like he just bought the entire arena with his Rolex collection, which he probably could. He has quite a few, from what I hear. The match itself, though, was a classic Flair cheating. You know how Flair runs. Classic Hogan. Of course, Hogan winning. That's usually what usually happens. Otherwise, he never wrestled, right? I guess he did give it a couple times. But Hogan wins everything. Babies are born. Taxes are collected, and Hogan wins. How the universe works. Hogan always wins. See, and they say that a lot in some of the documentaries that I've listened to. But still, this was two titans colliding. It was like Batman versus Superman. And if both of them were a little bloated and they were winded by the 12-minute mark. Number 7, Hulk Hogan versus Randy Orton at SummerSlam 2006. The legends versus the guy who steals your girlfriend. Here's one for the books. SummerSlam 2006. Hogan, well into his 50s, facing Randy Orton, the cocky, young legend killer who spent most of his promos looking like the kid in high school, who bullied you and then made out with your crush behind the bleachers. I have trauma. This was Hogan passing the torch, right? Just kidding. Hogan doesn't pass torches. He just hoards them like a dragon with gold. And Hogan, he beat Orton because, of course, he did. But the match still had that old man versus young lion vibe. Oh, highlights of that match, Orton RKOing Hogan's daughter as part of the build-up, which in hindsight is wild WWE TV, and Hogan doing the Hulk up routine one more time. The fact that you had to get your daughter to take a hit to sell your match, that's pretty low. It wasn't a wrestling classic, but it was like watching your dad beat up the guy who stole your Wi-Fi password. Deeply satisfying. Number 6, Hulk Hogan versus King Kong Bundy at WrestleMania 2. Cage match of hairy giants. 1986 WrestleMania 2. Hogan versus King Kong Bundy inside a steel cage. And when I say steel cage, I don't mean today sleek blue bars. No. I mean a cage from a dog kennel company liquidation sale. This was peak 80s Hogan. He was the American superhero, and Bundy was the bald, bearded monster who looked like he was about to repossess your car. Hogan came in injured, ribs taped up, of course, because of his age, he's falling apart. Bundy crushed Hogan. Of course, Hogan fought back and he slammed Bundy clunky cage like a mustached Spider-Man and won because, Hogan doesn't lose. It was a spectacle. Kids everywhere believed in Hulkamania that night, and Bundy went back to look like your scary uncle who works at the junkyard. He kind of smelled funny. Number 5, Hogan versus Triple H at Backlash 2002. Grandpa still has it. 2002 was wild. Hogan came back to WWE as Hollywood Hogan, turned babyface again, and after that Rock match, and suddenly the crowd was treating him like it was 1985 all over again. I can only imagine what kind of pain meds he was on to be able to do that match. So when Hogan fought Triple H at Backlash 2002 for the WWE Championship, the atmosphere was insane. Hogan was old. Triple H was in his prime, looking great, but the crowd, they didn't care. They wanted nostalgia. They wanted the red and the yellow, and they wanted to hawk up one more time. You know, they wanted that old style of Hawk delivered. And of course, guess what happened at the end? He won the belt. And tears in his eyes, the whole arena shaking in nostalgia. It was like when you see your dad dance at a, you know he's old. Number 4, the one that is most recognized for Hogan. Look at me lean back and show you my fat. I don't even care, okay? It's a Friday night. Gonna have some fun with this one. So number 4, Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant, the main event in 1988, the night wrestling became a soap opera. Forget WrestleMania 3 for a second. We'll get there. Okay, we'll get there. It was Andre the Giant trying to move around like a parked bus, and Hogan screaming, "Brother," for the 15 seconds. This was the infamous match where the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, paid off the referee, and we got the evil twin referee storyline. And Hogan lost the belt because of a crooked Hebner brother, and it was peak wrestling absurdity. And of course, every time Hogan lost the belt, it could never just be, you know, he loses it. It had to be something extreme. Was it good? And not really, but did it change wrestling forever by turning it into a must-see TV? Absolutely it did. Number 3, Hulk Hogan versus Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania. Passing the torch, sorta. Toronto, 1990, the Sky Dome. Hogan was there versus the Warrior, title for title. This was comic book stuff. It was like Superman versus Goku. The crowd was just split in half. It was half Warrior, half Hogan, and somehow, despite neither man being known for 5-star classics, they put on one of the most iconic matches ever, and the test of strength, the shoulder blocks, the stare downs. And yes, Warrior won. Hogan raised his hand in respect, passing the torch. But let's be honest, Hogan never really passes torches. He just loans them out until creative tells him to take them back. Number 2 is Hulk Hogan versus The Rock at WrestleMania, the loudest crowd in wrestling history. Toronto, again, in 2002, Hogan versus The Rock, icon versus icon. This wasn't a match. The crowd didn't just cheer. They lost their collective minds. Hogan came in as a villain. By the end, 70,000 people were treating him like the second comic of Elvis. Every punch, every slam, and every hawk up, people lost it. The match itself was simple, but it didn't matter. The crowd carried it into legend. The may have lost to The Rock that day, but he walked out the winner. This was the night Hulkamania resurrected from the dead like it just bench pressed the tombstone. I'm going to disagree with this number 1 match, okay? But I'm gonna say it anyways, because statistically, number 1, Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant, WrestleMania 3. The slam heard around the world. Here it is, the match, the legend, the reason your dad still yells brother when lifting a grocery bag. WrestleMania 3, Hogan versus Andre. 93,173 fans packed the Pontiac Silverdome. Hogan the superhero, Andre the undefeated giant. Could Hogan do the impossible? He did. He slammed Andre, and that's it. That was the moment. The body slam wasn't just a wrestling move. It was a cultural reset. It was the American winning the Cold War, Apple inventing the iPhone, and your grandma discovering Facebook, all rolled into one. The leg drop followed. The pin. Hogan stood tall. Hulkamania lived forever, and history was made. Now we laugh and, we joke and we roast the spandex and the promos. Be real for 1 second. Hulk Hogan wasn't just a wrestler, he was a piece of culture. He was the Saturday morning hero. He was the guy on the lunchbox. He was the reason millions of kids believed in themselves, even if they didn't fully understand that vitamins were. He inspired generations of wrestlers who came after him. Yeah, sure. He was flawed. And yes, he was larger than life. He was ours. When he flexed, when the music hit, when he cupped his ears to the crowd, it felt like magic. So here's to Hulk Hogan, the immortal one, and the man who made us cheer, laugh, cringe, and believe. Rest in peace, brother, and Hulkamania will never die. It just runs wild in our memories forever. And by the way, I did say something about the number one match. I don't feel like that was the number one match, in my opinion. Statistically, it is. But I really believe strongly that his number one match was when he let Sting beat him at Starrcade in WCW. That was a very epic match, and it was big for pay-per-view sales, and it's sad that it didn't make the list statistically. But, hey, that's the way it goes. Thanks for watching, and we tried something a little new tonight. I'm just shooting with my other camera, my other mic, and I just want to see coming out here and just shooting from the hip, because you know what? Hogan meant a lot to me. I'm a huge Sting fan, but Hogan, rest in peace, brother.